Hey y'all, welcome to Crepe Myrtle Row. My name is Lisa. Today I'm going to take you around and tour my garden for early spring. So you can see some of the things that are blooming now that won't be later. I can show you how I've gotten some things planted up, and then later in the season I'll share again at how full they get and all of that. But it's a little bit of a rainy day, so it's kind of calmed down right now. So we'll go around and look at all of that. And I apologize beforehand if it sounds like you hear heavy breathing and stuff. I have a new microphone, it picks up a lot, and I'm overweight and out of shape. So you're going to probably hear that. But let's just get started. Okay, I thought I would go ahead and share a little bit outside. It's a rainy day. It's kind of a break in the rain right now. Um, but just to give you an early spring look at my flowers. My daffodils are dying back, and I'll leave them till they completely turn yellow, then I'll cut them down. I know it, it used to drive me crazy looking at it like that, but I just learned to deal with it because that's how they get their flowers for next year. And then I've got my begonias and some creeping Jenny here. By the end of the summer, you won't even be able to see the pots here. If I can think of it, I'll insert a picture of how it looked last year. And then this year, I decided to do what they call the jellyfish planters, where you put stuff in the top and then you have vines that will hang down, normally these dichondra vines. Eventually, these will fill out to where you don't see any of the basket. Last year I didn't add plants up here, but I decided to do that this year. And everything's on drip irrigation, so that helps a lot. But when these drip down, they water the plants below. So that's why I put those random pots there. Is it's just take advantage of the dripping water. Then these are some pots that I actually bought pre-planted at Lowe's. As a matter of fact, I didn't even take the thing out of there, and I just set them down because, I mean, it fills out and you don't even see the pot there. And it was actually cheaper to do that than to buy all the separate plants to plant in those, because it was not very much. I think these were, I don't see, 16, I think it says $16 on it down in there. But to get a good size of these individual plants, you're, $3 or $4 a piece, and there are a lot of plants in there. And then my little black elephant ears are coming back out. This clematis vine is very pretty. It's starting to, a bunch of the leaves are starting to fall because of the rain. And have me a little hummingbird feeder there. I have a azalea that's almost through blooming. I transplanted it from beside my garage to over here early spring. And then y'all, look at this Sum and Substance hosta. That's how big that leaf is with my hand there. I planted those last year toward the end of summer. Absolutely love those. And all of this other stuff you see around, this is called Rose Campion, and it has the little purple flowers. I'll give a close-up of that. And then this here, I have two of them. These were Christmas deer that were covered in lights. They're way over 30 years old. But I had in my mind, if they ever went out, that I wanted to paint them and use them for yard art and to grow things on. So I actually planted, and of course you can see I painted it pink because I wanted something kind of whimsical. But I planted these clematis vines on each side that will eventually grow up like that's covering that piece. These will eventually grow up, and I can train them all over this. I also have some morning glory that I put some seeds down in there just to get some more instant impact this year. And y'all, this one's already, I mean, you can see it's already, when I first put it in a couple of weeks ago, it was down here, It's already up to there. This is a blue hosta. And then here's my fountain. Love the way all of this grows on it. And my husband, when he hooked up all our irrigation, he actually ran a line into here. So every day when my plants get watered, that comes on and continues to fill up the fountain, so I don't have to worry, especially like in late summer when it's really hot out here. This thing will dry up in a couple of days if I didn't have constant water going in it. But I just love it. I had to peel off the stuff here so that the water could drip a little better, and then I just laid it down here and it continues to grow. And then here's those rose campion. As you can see, they cover my walkway, so I can't really walk through too good. But I love the colors of those. That is some coral bells or heuchera that's in there. Another blue hosta. And I've shared this before, my bottle tree, and I just use my collection of milk glass bottles. I've had people fussing about, why do you have those out there? Some of those are from the 1930s and stuff, but hey, this is the way I want to enjoy them. And y'all, I lost one bottle, and I didn't lose it. It just fell off during Hurricane Helene that came through that like devastated our area. Only one bottle fell off this tree, and I was able to put it back on. That's another Sum and Substance hosta. And then this is just wild clover, but hey, it covers the ground. It kind of chokes out other weeds, and it has pretty little yellow flowers on it and stuff, and it's a pollinator. It helps the bees, so I'll leave it alone. I've got it right there too. My most of my yard is clover, but I don't mind if it spreads around there. And that is a wave petunia or supertunia. Hopefully it'll fill in this space. A butterfly bush that will bloom. Once it starts blooming, it blooms all the way up until like November for me, as long as I keep deadheading the blooms on it. And my roses are all flopped over from the rain, but they are still gorgeous. I just planted these last year. These are the, what is it called? It's not flower carpet. You know, my brain's gone dead right now. I'll insert a tag up here to tell you what those are. Most of you probably know what they are. They're the ones that bloom all the time. I just cannot think of the name of them right now. Transplanted that I grew in my greenhouse. And then I have in here, it's some geraniums that they're not doing as well as what I would like. So I might pull these out. I got them from Lowe's, but they have that kind of color and they're like a big ball. But for some reason, they're not really wanting to bloom very much. And I'm used to geraniums that continually bloom, you know, until the frost kills them. And then I love these petunias. Again, I can't remember the name. If I can find the tags, I will try to insert tags of everything that I'm talking about up there. But I love them because it looks like little stars in there. This is some stuff that I dug up from my daughter's yard, which is right there. That was a big bed they had, the previous owner had, and they didn't want it quite that big. So I dug out a bunch of plants from it, and was daffodils. And then this, I'm not sure what this vine is called, but it has these pretty little purple flowers, and it will spread and can be quite invasive if you don't keep it in check, but I hope to be able to keep that in check. More of my knockout roses. That's what these are, knockout roses in the pink. And then there's another one of the deer that I did that to. In this one, I planted Carolina, or this was actually swamp jasmine. So the swamp jasmine is very similar to Carolina jasmine, except it will bloom twice a year. And you can't really tell it, but it had these pretty little yellow flowers. And again, it's it's already gone crazy having it planted here. I grew that from a cutting in my greenhouse, and I constantly have to keep weeds. That was grass trying to come up in here, and I'm having to always keep it dead. There's some more daffodils. I'm letting those, I actually can trim back now that they've died back. And along the front of the bed, I planted this purple. It's a juga of some sort. I'm not sure, or bugleweed, some people call it. I'll insert a thing for it, but it has these really tall, and when I first planted them, they were really full purple, like you can see how that looks. All of that was full, and these will spread out. I was just wanting something to kind of fill in the areas right here up against the driveway, but love having all of this down through here. My husband keeps saying, you can't even walk down the path. I'm like, I know, but who uses the pathway? We walk in between everything. I would love to plant me some foxglove over in here, but don't know if I'll get to that. I might try to start some from seed and do it for next year. Not sure. But let's go down over here. This wall, I just stick things like I've thinned out my irises, so I put them here. That's why they're looking a little burn up or whatever. I just transplanted them maybe a month ago, so they didn't bloom this year. One of them did down the road, but hopefully next year they'll perk up. And then this little clover, it has pink flowers. It's not opened up and it being cloudy. Just transplanted some little seed on there and there. This is a bed I just stick things in. That's some stuff I grew. It's called the purple plant, I think. This is candy tuft. See the white flowers? It was solid white. And if I get out here and trim that back, then it might put out another flush of flowers during the summer. I believe this might be a sunflower. That was one that bloomed for me. You have some dianthus or pinks all in here. More of my irises I transplanted. And I have some lamb's ear, some canna there. And then as I get down in here, we get into where it's in the shade. So like these irises, they bloomed, and it's okay to have them here because they bloom before this tree puts out leaves, so they're not in the shade at that time. These will be really pretty pink gladolias. And then I have ostrich fern here. These two and one other down there I just planted, and these came up from last year. And they're supposed to get anywhere from 3 to 5 foot tall and then just grow straight up like they're doing to help fill in this area. And more gladolias. And then this is a Confederate jasmine that I planted last year, and it'll have white flowers on it pretty much all summer long. And then we have my irises that I thinned out. And y'all, I've cut these crepe myrtle trees down. I cut them down every year, and they grow to full height every year and have flowers on them. But they're right there. I had to cut them down a couple of years ago because they got those ambrosia beetles in them that killed them or was starting to kill them. So we cut them down. They came back like this. We left them alone, and they got, probably 10 foot tall and full of flowers. So I said this year I was going to just keep them broke down and not let them grow, but I don't know. We'll see if I get out here and take them down. But I thinned out, I know it's hard to tell that I thinned them out, but I thinned out all of these irises down through here. And that's what I transplanted up at the other part of the yard. These are just some blueberry bushes that my daughter dug up out of her yard. and we transplanted them over here, and I have no idea what weed or ground cover this is that's growing in the pot with it, because the soil that it was growing in, we just dug up everything and put it in these pots, hoping we could save them. And then my greenhouse has nothing in it but storage right now. I just leave the door open and have it for storage. Then I have this planted with a little bit of everything, some cannas, the purple plant. Some of this broke off when I was transplanting, so I just stuck it in there. And last year I had thrifted that and put that in there. And then that's a type of sedum, lemon coral sedum, I think, and lamb's ear. And there's other stuff that's stuck down in there that I just put into that had broken off or just needed somewhere to plant it. But don't know if it's going to grow too good in there. And then back here is our little sitting area, and absolutely love it. I put all my succulents in here, but kept them in the greenhouse during the winter because I'm not sure. I think this one and that one can stay outside, but I'm not 100% sure. So if you recognize these plants, I'm not even sure what it's called, agave or something. If it can handle out in the frost, y'all let me know, because I would rather plant them out in the yard than having to keep putting them in the greenhouse. And this is a giant heuchera that I grew in this pot last year. And then we have, this will fill out with the begonias, the diamond snow euphorbia, and creeping Jenny. And then this year, instead of putting the cocoa liners in here that I have to replace every single year, and they start deteriorating down in here, my husband had this thin metal that we essentially made trays inside here to hold the dirt in, and we got, it drains through because this is not solid pieces, so the water can drain out of that. But hopefully this will keep the dirt in place for several years. I won't have to keep, replacing it every single year. And the birds would also still, like you can see this one, that was one from last year. They stole all the stuff at the top and to make their nest. So I just put a new one, just kind of opened it up on the bottom and stuck it on top just to reinforce it. And then this gets water from dripping down in there. It's a begonia, not a begonia, a geranium that I overwintered. Well, actually, there's two of them in there. I took cuttings from this one and grew those in my greenhouse over the summer. And then that was the mother plant that I saved it. And it bloomed all winter. So now I'm thinking it might not bloom this summer because it bloomed so long all winter in the greenhouse. And all of this will fill in eventually. Dragonwing begonias, potato vine, all of that eventually will be full and you will barely see anything in there. Go back around here and share on my table here. This was, if you've watched my thrift hauls and room tours, you've probably remembered me thrifting this box last year and using it during the fall decor on my dining room table. Well, it was pretty there, but it wasn't my favorite thing there because it was kind of big on the table. And so I had thought about selling it, and then I had the aha moment to actually just have my husband drill holes in it and use for a planter. So he drilled the holes, and y'all, I don't know what this wood this was made out of, but when he drilled those holes, that was the best smelling sawdust. It was almost like a perfume smell. It didn't smell like cedar, but it had the best smell I've ever smelled in wood. I was like, oh my goodness, I wish I knew what it was made out of. But just filled it up with, these are like a um, small type of petunia thing. I'll insert the tag for those because I don't think it's called a petunia, or it's like a mini tunia or something like that. That's what it's called. In verbena, I need to get out here and deadhead a little bit of that to keep it going. And there's the big giant fern that I had last year, and I overwintered in our garage, and now we're waiting for it to fill back up. Eventually, by the end of summer, you won't be able to see the bottom or any of this space around it. And then that's just some oxalis that I planted. And this was a sticker that I found on Temu and put on there. And y'all, I didn't realize that after I was sticking it on that that was actually supposed to stick down here and that over there or something. I was just grabbing them and sticking them, and let me tell you, that stuff stuck immediately. There was no playing around and moving it, but I mean, if you got to look at your hot water heater, at least decorate it, I guess. And have my thingwood bottles there and just some little succulent plants. And then I'll walk around the yard the other way, around the back of the yard, and show you those bushes in front of the house. But here I just have some things hanging. This is like little mirrors. And when it's sunny outside, it is gorgeous. It just sparkles all over the place. I love our fountain here. And this is supposed to be on a stake, but the hurricane did break the stake, so my husband just hung it up in the tree, and it works great unless it's extremely windy, and then it wants to fly into the chain and not work so well. And then I've just hung little glass pieces around as art. Y'all, I love whimsical stuff. It's my fairy garden. I just literally stuck stuff in here. I had so many things that I just started sticking them here because I wanted it to be where my grandson could play with it if he wanted to. So all the stuff down here on the bottom, that's where he wanted to put it. I just took it out of the box and handed it to him and said, put it where you want it. And that's where he wanted it. He didn't do too bad of a job there, just placing it around, and now he can still pick it up and play with it if he wants to. There's some, this moss started dying down, but it looks like it's maybe going to come back. And just had some creeping thyme and different things that I put in there. But I've had this thing for years, but I kind of let it get overgrown and out of hand, and then I cleaned it out and then decided to put it back here. So any of the kids coming to my house, they can actually get in here and play with it if they want to. This upside down crystal bowl, I normally have a ball sitting there, like a mirrored gazing ball, but my grandson has an obsession with smacking balls right now, and so I can't put it there because he wants to smack it and it, fall onto the rocks, and it's glass, so I don't want to do that right now. And then here was a big, it's like a stone fish that I thrifted a few months ago. And like, these are old bed frames. I just put those, and I've got some morning glory seeds planted there, so hopefully they'll come up. And this will be gorgeous when it blooms, and I will share later on in the season as it comes out. I'll share at least some pictures when I'm doing thrift hauls and things so y'all can see it. It's an oak leaf hydrangea, and it has huge long blooms on it that start out white, and then they turn pink, and then a deep maroon color. And then that's a hydrangea that hasn't bloomed for me in years. Hopefully it'll do something this year. I don't know. Looks like it's, some of the stuff's coming back, but some of it isn't. Okay, this bed around my tree is what I called my tea party garden. And I used to have plates lining the edge, which you might have seen up there in the other video. They're sitting there on the steps of the garage waiting for me to put them back in place. I want to find something to put. That was one of my grandmother's planters. And I know some people would be like, it needs painting, but I kind of like the weathered look of it and stuff. And then I have hostas. Um, there's just like different types of Monarda grass, or monkey grass is what we call it. These were daffodils that you see around. And then I have different types of ferns here. And those aren't dying. That's just when they first come out. I think it's called an autumn fern. But it starts looking like this, and then it turns green later in the spring. And just different things that I've stuck around in here. And you see my little teapots and stuff, and teacups. I have a video showing how I went about making that. I'll try to put a link to it in the description box so you can see. And then here's a little water fountain down here. This actually, the reason this come about is it was an underground spring, and my husband dug a hole and the water was just bubbling up and it ran down through there. Well, it'll do that for a few years, then it'll dry up. So it's dried up right now. So what my husband did is just line the hole, and we put the pump down in there to pump it out, and we just have to keep adding water to it ourselves for now. Once we see the spring opens back up, we can take the liner out and it'll fill up itself. And out there I have just an old bicycle that I painted, and all of that is the crocosmia, I think's what it was called. And I think there might be some gladolias mixed in there. That was my grandmother's bird bath. It needs leveling really bad. And I think I'm going to plant some, you can't see it in there for the mess, but she has holes drilled in it. So I think I'm going to put some succulent stuff in there. This knockout rose is probably 4 or 5 years old, maybe at least. I can't remember exactly when I planted it, but it's gotten pretty big. And then this is full of succulents, little mini ivy that's growing crazy. This is a Rose of Sharon that I will share pictures of in June. It is covered in double purple flowers. It's gorgeous, if the Japanese beetles and June bugs don't kill it. And then I have different petunias just planted around in the bottom here. And all of this is on irrigation as well. That's an azalea. These are gardenias that will bloom out. Another knockout rose in red. And then this is actually a flower carpet rose that should be on the ground. I didn't notice how big it would get when I planted it. So we had to stake it up. Let me see if I can get under here where you can see it. See the metal fencing? That's trying to hold, there's two pieces sandwiched together to hold this thing up. And I trimmed this back a couple of months ago, and I want you to look at all of this coming up. But I'm going to leave it because it's absolutely beautiful. And y'all, that one smells so good. Now, the knockout roses don't have a smell, or mine don't. But that one is so good. And those gardenias smell really good when they're blooming. But my husband was telling me the other day, he said, we need to trim the rose bush back. I'm like, I actually did a lot. And it's growing back like crazy. But I think putting that rose tone fertilizer is what made it go crazy with blooming. I got it on at the right time, I guess. And so we're back here at the beginning of the yard here. I'm not sure what the name of that bush is, but it does have like a pinkish white bloom. And then here was the gladolias last year. These came up on their own. I've never planted them there, but they just came up. I thought these were the crocosmia. That's what I said last year. But it turns out they're orange and yellow looking gladiolus. Again, if I can find a picture, I'll put it here. But they get so big and tall that we had to put this around to help hold them in place. And there's other places I've seen them around in this bed trying to come up. But that is it for my early spring garden tour. I know there's a lot of things that are not blooming yet, but I knew there are things that are blooming now that won't be later in the season that I really wanted y'all to get to see, like the clematis and things like that. And you'll get to see the difference in, how these plants look now right after planting versus, later in the summer when they're full. But I hope y'all have a very blessed day. If you don't already subscribe to my channel, I would love for you to join my YouTube family and come over to Instagram and join me there. Bye.